Picture this: August 26, 1071. The dusty plains near Manzikert in eastern Anatolia tremble beneath tens of thousands of boots and hooves. Byzantine Emperor Romanos IV, Diogenes, draped in imperial purple and iron resolve, leads his strained, faction-ridden army. Elite Varangians, hardened thematic troops, and unreliable mercenaries against the whirling cavalry of Sultan Alp Arslan. Seljuk horse archers sweep across the battlefield, arrows blotting out the sun as classic steppe tactics unfold. Feigned retreats stretch Byzantine lines thin, and then betrayal snaps the spine of the empire. Treacherous generals pull back at the critical moment, leaving Romanos isolated. Still, he fights, bloodied, exhausted, refusing to yield, until he's surrounded and captured. Brought before Alp Arslan, the emperor expects humiliation or death. Instead, the Sultan lifts him to his feet, spares his life, and demands tribute. But mercy cannot blunt the magnitude of the disaster. Manzikert isn't just a battlefield defeat. It's the shattering point that unravels Byzantine control of Anatolia and opens the floodgates for Turkish expansion. The Seljuk-Byzantine Wars, 1040s, 1180s, a grinding century-long struggle between nomadic dynamism and imperial tradition, reshaped the medieval world. From early frontier raids to the catastrophes of Manzikert and Myriocephalon, these clashes crippled Byzantium, forged the Sultanate of Rum, and set the stage for the First Crusade. As Seljuk power surged, the heirs of Rome slipped further into crisis. And out of this collision came cultural blending, shifting borders, and geopolitical tremors still felt in modern Turkey and the wider region. Strap in. This is where East and West collided in fire, steel, and destiny. Part 1. Setup. Titans on the horizon, pre-1071. The 11th century opens with Byzantium still projecting the long shadow of Basil II, the Bulgar Slayer. His empire stretches impressively, from southern Italy to the Armenian highlands. Its backbone, the Orthodox faith, and a centuries-deep administrative machine. But after his death, the cracks widen fast. Court factions sabotage each other. Military funding bleeds into aristocratic luxuries, and border armies, once proud thematic troops, are replaced by unreliable mercenaries. Pecheneг raids ravage the Balkans, tax burdens rise, and emperors like Constantine IX squander reserves on court spectacles while frontier defenses crumble. Meanwhile, far to the east, a new titan rises. The Seljuks, Turkic nomads hardened by the steppes, embraced Sunni Islam under Toghril Beg in the 1030s, fusing religious legitimacy with military ferocity. Their decisive victory over the Ghaznavids at Dandanakan, 1040, opens the gates to Persia. By 1055, they stride into Baghdad, with Toghril crowned sultan and protector of the Abbasid Caliph. United under a banner of jihad, ambition, and the practical need for new pastures, Seljuk Ghazi bands begin probing the Armenian frontier. Early confrontations, like the 1048 Battle of Passanlar, give Byzantium temporary relief, but the Seljuks keep pushing, testing garrisons, seizing forts, and learning the terrain. When Alp Arslan takes the throne in 1063, the expansion accelerates. He sees Anatolia not just as plunder, but as a frontier ripe for permanent conquest. Romanos IV, Diogenes, ascending in 1068, recognizes the existential threat. He races to restore the army, fortify eastern borders, and reclaim lost provinces. Yet behind him lurk scheming nobles waiting for him to fail. Two worlds now accelerate toward collision. The mobile, devastating cavalry of the Seljuk steppe tradition versus Byzantium's entrenched but fragile imperial machine. The stage is set. The spark is lit. Part 2. The storm builds. Raids and early battles, 1040s, 1070. Seljuk pressure intensifies through the mid-11th century. In 1064, Alp Arslan unleashes a campaign that shocks the Christian world. The sack of Ani, the fortified city of 1,001 churches. Its walls crumble under siege engines, thousands are slaughtered, and survivors are marched east in chains. The fall of Ani is more than a military defeat. It is a catastrophic blow to Byzantine authority in Armenia and a psychological rupture across the empire. Romanos IV, Diogenes, determined to restore imperial dignity, launches counter-campaigns in 1068 and 1069. He retakes several border strongholds and pushes Seljuk bands back. But victory is fleeting. Seljuk horse archers refuse direct confrontation, melting into the mountains after volleys of arrows, striking supply lines, villages, and isolated garrisons. Their mobility makes Byzantine advances feel like chasing shadows. Inside the empire, sabotage thrives. Aristocratic rivals whisper against Romanos in Constantinople, undermining his reforms. Norman mercenaries, crucial shock troops, desert or switch sides for better pay. Command unity deteriorates as jealous generals undercut each other in the field. By 1070, Seljuk raiders penetrate deep into Cappadocia, torching farms, plundering monasteries, and disrupting the vital east-west trade routes. Panic spreads across Anatolia. Romanos responds with a massive mobilization. An army of 40,000, 60,000, a patchwork of Franks, Armenians, Pechenegs, Varangians, and provincial levies. His objective? Secure Manzikert, stabilize the frontier, and deliver a decisive blow. But Alp Arslan has his own ambitions. Victorious in Syria and fresh from securing Aleppo, he receives news of Romanos' advance and rapidly pivots north. With 30,000, 40,000 seasoned cavalry, men who grew up in the saddle, masters of composite bows, he races toward the Armenian highlands. Two radically different military traditions, Roman organization versus Seljuk steppe warfare, now rush toward collision. The storm is gathering. The battlefield is chosen. Destiny waits at Manzikert. Part 3. Cataclysm at Manzikert, the turning point. 1071, August 1071. Romanos IV retakes the fortress of Manzikert with little resistance, but a disastrous decision follows. He divides his forces. The detachment under Joseph Tarchaneotes, nearly half the army, mysteriously withdraws and vanishes from the campaign. Whether out of fear, confusion, or outright treason, the result is the same. Romanos enters the coming battle dangerously undermanned. Alp Arslan, aware of Romanos' weakened position, offers surprisingly generous peace terms. He wants stability in the west while campaigning in Syria. But Romanos, pressured by pride, politics, and the need for a decisive victory, refuses. The die is cast. On August 26th, the armies clash. Seljuk skirmishers pepper the Byzantines for hours, firing arrows from swift horses before retreating just out of reach. A classic steppe tactic. Romanos orders a full advance, his line forming with heavy infantry at the center and mixed cavalry on the wings, including unreliable Pecheneg and Uz's auxiliaries. Alp Arslan unleashes his masterstroke, the famed Seljuk Crescent. His troops withdraw in a controlled, disciplined, feigned retreat, luring the Byzantines into an ever-widening trap. As Romanos pushes forward, thinking victory near, the Seljuk wings curve inward like a tightening noose. Suddenly, arrows fall in sheets. The sky darkens with shafts. Confusion spreads as the Pechenegs and Uzis, step cousins of the Seljuks, switch sides mid-battle, turning on the Byzantines. When Romanos orders an organized withdrawal to reform the line, catastrophe strikes. Andronikos Doukas, a political rival and co-commander, betrays him. He falsely announces the emperor's death and leads the rear guard off the field. The Byzantine army collapses. Surrounded, battered from all sides, the formations break apart. Romanos, refusing to flee, fights on foot after his horse is killed beneath him. Wounded, exhausted, and still swinging his sword, he is finally captured, becoming the first reigning Byzantine emperor taken alive in battle in nearly 4 centuries. Casualties are devastating. Around 8,000 Byzantines killed, countless more captured or scattered. Seljuk losses are modest by comparison. Alp Arslan treats Romanos with honor, negotiating a relatively mild treaty, tribute, prisoner exchanges, and limited territorial concessions. But when Romanos returns home, his political enemies overthrow him, blind him, and leave him to die. With the treaty voided and the empire in civil war, Anatolia lies naked and undefended. The gates of Asia Minor swing open. Turkic tribes pour in, not just raiders, but settlers, farmers, and frontier warriors. Within a generation, the heartland of Byzantium transforms forever, paving the way for the Sultanate of Rum and the eventual rise of the Ottoman Empire. Manzikert is no mere defeat. It is the hinge of medieval history. Part 4. The Deluge and later clashes, from Rum to Myriocephalon, 1071-1180s. In the aftermath of Manzikert, the Byzantine Empire didn't simply retreat, it imploded. Between 1071 and 1081, rival generals, aristocrats, and pretenders tore the empire apart in a decade-long civil war. While Byzantines fought Byzantines, Seljuk warbands flooded into the vacuum. City after city fell. By 1081, the unthinkable happened. Nicaea, once a bastion of Roman authority, became the capital of the new Sultanate of Rum under Suleiman ibn Kutalmish. Anatolia, the empire's economic heart, military backbone, and cultural cradle, was slipping away. Salvation arrived through desperation. Emperor Alexios I Komnenos, battling on every front, made a fateful gamble. He appealed to Western Christendom. His request for mercenaries spiraled into something far larger, the First Crusade. In 1097, Crusader armies retook Nicaea and handed it back to Byzantium, marking one of the few major reversals of Seljuk expansion. Under Alexios and his successors, Byzantium clawed back pockets of western Anatolia, stabilizing the shattered frontier. But the struggle was far from over. The Seljuks struck coastal towns, devastated trade routes, and entrenched themselves deeper into central Anatolia. By the mid-12th century, both sides were powerful but wary, locked in a grinding generational contest. The turning point of this later era came in 1176 at the Battle of Myriocephalon. Emperor Manuel Komnenos, dreaming of restoring Roman Anatolia, marched a massive army into Seljuk territory. But Toghril Arslan II understood the terrain better. He lured Manuel into a narrow mountain pass choked with brush and cliffs. Seljuk archers and ambushers descended like a storm. Wagons jammed the path. Cavalry couldn't maneuver. Dust and chaos swallowed the ranks. Manuel narrowly escaped annihilation, but his army was shredded, its siege engines destroyed, its morale broken. Myriocephalon became, for Byzantium, a second Manzikert, not as disastrous, but just as symbolic. Manuel's imperial dream of reclaiming the Anatolian plateau died in that mountain pass. Never again would Byzantium mount a serious campaign to retake the heartland. By the 1180s, an uneasy truce settled over the region. The frontiers stabilized, But Anatolia had changed irrevocably. Cities once Greek-speaking now echoed with Turkish dialects. Farmers, nomads, and warriors from countless Turkic clans settled its plains. Entire regions were transformed, religiously, culturally, economically. The old Byzantine heartland wasn't just lost, it had become something new. Part 5. Aftermath and Legacy. Redrawn maps and enduring shadows. Manzikert didn't just end a battle, it rewired the entire medieval world. For Byzantium, the loss of Anatolia was catastrophic. The empire's breadbasket, tax base, and recruitment ground vanished almost overnight. The once invincible Eastern Roman Empire now limped on with a fraction of its strength. Its armies were smaller, its treasury drained, and its politics poisoned by blame and factionalism. This downward spiral accelerated across the next century, culminating in 1204 when the Fourth Crusade, meant to rescue Byzantium, instead looted and burned Constantinople itself. The empire survived only as a fractured shadow. Meanwhile, the Seljuk Turks of the Sultanate of Rum reached their golden age. They forged a hybrid civilization, Persian in its literature, Turkic in its warrior ethos, but unmistakably shaped by the Byzantine world they inherited. Architects studied Roman domes. Mosques echoed the silhouette of Hagia Sophia. Trade routes revived under tolerant, pragmatic rule. Rum became a cultural crossroads where Greek artisans, Armenian merchants, and Turkic nobles lived side by side. This blending, political, religious, artistic, planted the seeds of what would later become the Ottoman Empire, one of history's most enduring powers. The larger world also shifted. The loss of Anatolia pushed Byzantium to seek Western help, igniting the Crusades, which reshaped the Levant for centuries. The power vacuum in the East paved the way for the devastating Mongol invasions, which shattered the Seljuks and reshuffled the political map once again. Out of the ruins rose new emirates, one of them ruled by a frontier clan under Osman, whose dynasty would outlast both Byzantium and Rum. And the legacy? It lingers even now. The cultural fusion, born in 11th century Anatolia, helped form the Ottoman millet system, an early model of multi-ethnic governance. The geopolitical shift from Greek-speaking Anatolia to Turkish-speaking Anatolia laid the foundations of modern Turkey. And the wounds of the era, from displacement to religious conflict, still echo quietly in Greek-Turkish relations, in borders drawn and redrawn, in memories passed down through generations. Manzikert changed kings, armies, and maps, but more importantly, it changed civilizations. Conclusion. When two worlds collided from the windswept plains of Manzikert to the shadowed passes of Myriocephalon, the Seljuk-Byzantine wars were more than a clash of armies. They were the slow turning of a civilizational hinge. Byzantium, heir to Rome's ancient glory, met the rising momentum of the Turkic world. Forged on the steppe and sharpened by faith, mobility, and opportunity. What followed was not a single moment of collapse, but a century-long struggle that reshaped everything from borders to belief. Yet history is never just loss or victory. Out of the ashes of broken fortresses and burned cities came something new. Cultures blending, religions negotiating coexistence, and political systems evolving. The Seljuks and Byzantines didn't just fight. They influenced each other, borrowed from each other, and ultimately set the stage for empires still remembered today. And that's the true legacy of this era. Great powers fall, new powers rise, but the world they leave behind is forever transformed. So, As we close this chapter, from the rise of the Seljuks to the twilight of Byzantium, remember, history isn't just names and dates. It's the story of how every clash, every decision, every battlefield ripple shapes the world we inherit. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through fire, intrigue, and destiny, make sure to like, subscribe, and dive into the next chapter. Because history's greatest battles are far from over.